Hello everybody, today I'm going to be drawing some picnic foods. I've always loved picnics and how cute they are, so I thought why don't I draw some of the foods you bring on a picnic with you. So I've got my iPad because I think I want to do this digitally, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and let's just get right into the video. And so I'm thinking to have the basket in the middle and then the food surrounding it, so let's just get started. And so of course I'm starting off with the basket, and I wanted like a really cute cottagecore one, so I drew the basket and then I also added some lace to it as well as a cute little bow. And I did decide to make one side open as well. So I just started off with the first item and I decided to go for sandwiches because I feel like you have to have those at a picnic, and I decided to go for cucumber cream cheese because it's cute and it adds a pop of color. And I also drew some fruit, specifically berries, because I thought those would be cute. And for a drink, I went for iced tea in a pitcher, and I'm actually really happy with that shape. But I moved on to some cheese, so I went for some brie and then also just like a block of Swiss. I was kind of running out of ideas, so I just decided to go with bread. I know there's already sandwiches, but there's never enough bread. And for the last item, I went for dessert, and I went for chocolate chip cookies. Hey, I never said this was a healthy picnic. I was thinking of doing a slice of cake, but I thought the cookies would be a bit more realistic of what you'd actually bring. And now comes the fun part, which is coloring. So I started off again with the sandwiches, and I went for a tan bread color, obviously. And I tried to give it a bit of texture with the brush I was using, which was the round brush. And I also went in with some dots to kind of show the holes in the bread. And of course I'm doing the same thing with the other side. Again, just using the same color and method, making sure they matched. And then I started on the cucumbers, so I just went in with this really bright green, and I like the pop that it gives. And yes, I kind of drew them weirdly, so I just fixed that. And then to shade the cream cheese, I just went in with a gray and moved on to the berries. And you'll notice throughout this whole video, I really didn't feel like drawing inside the lines today, so I just scribbled and then erased the parts that went outside. And so I just shaded the strawberry. I feel like I draw strawberries so often that there was not even any hesitation, I just went for it. And of course I'm moving on to the blueberries, which, shocker, I made blue. I know that's crazy. But yeah, this was basically the same process. I made the indent part darker because that's how it usually is in blueberries. And then all that was left was the stem of the strawberry, so I just went for a very simple green with that and did a bit of shading, and the berries were finished. And onto the cheese, I went for a bright yellow for the Swiss, which I know isn't super realistic, but I think it needs the color, especially next to the other cheese, which is some kind of brie, which is mostly like white and cream. I added some texture with a darker brush because I feel like the wax around it usually does have that. And then I moved on to the bread. This was probably the simplest one. I just went with brown and added a bit of shading, and then I went for a letter brown for the circle bread. Again, adding some shading and making the inside a little bit lighter. And now onto the iced tea, which was one of my favorites to color. I made this really nice ombre of like a dark red to an orange to a yellow, and then I started with the ice cubes. And you can see I have a reference pulled up, but I tried to make the ice cubes kind of see-through because I wanted to show a bit of the orange behind it. And then I also added some lemons, so I just colored those in with a bright yellow. And of course I also added some shading to the picture itself because I didn't want it to look flat compared to the rest of it. And just like that, we're on to the last food item, which is the cookies. So I just did some pretty simple shading with that, colored in the chocolate chips with a dark brown. And I felt like each chip kind of looked a little dull, so I just added a bit of shadow behind it to make it pop out a little, as well as some texture through the cookie. And I did adjust them a bit because I thought they were a little bit flat, and I think that made them look better. So moving on to the last item, which is the basket, I decided to make it brown, just like most things on this page, honestly. But yeah, I just started off with a base color and then went for a darker brown on some of the edges and parts that I knew would be darker. And then I did the main shading, just making some places darker to add some shadow and depth. And I felt like the brown I was using wasn't quite dark enough, so I went to an even darker brown. And to work on the fabric, I just went in with some gray, and I also added a bit of like a lacy pattern just to give it some more detail. And of course I wanted to make it look weaved, so I decided to just kind of draw the lines in a crisscross, but try not to make them super dark so it's not like overkill with it. And I tried not to make them too straight or anything. And I just finished it off by shading the bow. And I was kind of aware of how messed up the line art was, so I decided to just go over and redo it, because the other one was kind of a sketch and it wasn't like exact. But yeah, this definitely wasn't as fun as coloring, but it is pretty satisfying to watch, and I think it definitely makes the drawing look better. I will say I was pretty happy with how steady my hand was. I was able to get the line I wanted in about 2 to 3 tries, which for me is pretty good. And I also didn't try to make it super perfect because I think it adds a little bit of charm, and also I didn't want to spend hours on this. And while I was coloring, I did miss a few spots that were covered by the other line art, so I tried my best to fill those in with the new line art so that there weren't like patches and weird spots and stuff. but some things I did have to go back and go over because it was just too hard to cover up. But yeah, once I finished the basket, the drawing was pretty much done and it kind of brought everything together. I also decided to label each item just because I thought it would make the spread a little bit cuter, but once I finished with that, it was done. Okay, so here is how the finished product turned out. I think this is super cute and it came out just as I imagined it to. I have to say, I think the iced tea and the sandwich are my favorite, but I also think this basket is just super cute. I had fun making this and I'm really happy with the finished result. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. Bye!